This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so it's 7 o'clock. My name's Lindsay Green. I'm the clerk, and I'm going to call the meeting to order to start with. I see we have every member on the meeting tonight, other than Jerry. He's on here, but I don't see him. But that doesn't affect quorum, so we'll just maybe give him another second to just come back to the camera. But I think we'll start with some introductions of all the members, and I'll just remind everyone that if you're not speaking, to mute your microphone. It just decreases background noise. But so I guess I'll start. I already said my name's Lindsay Green. I'm the clerk. And then Holly, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, I'm Holly and I am the recording secretary for the Affordable Attainable Housing Committee.
And Alicia Milne is also on. She might not turn her camera on, but she's also staff in the clerk's department. Alicia, are you there?
Hello, I'm here. I'm just the legislative and administrative assistant in the clerk's department. I'm just sitting in for my own information tonight.
Terry?
Hi, I'm Terry. I'm the EDO for Southgate, and I'm sitting in for my own information as well tonight.
Clint?
Hello, everyone. I'm Clint Stredwick. I'm the planner for the Township of Southgate, and I've got a portion of my presentation, or of the presentation tonight, to talk to you guys about. So,
Dave, most know you.
Yeah. Okay. And maybe what I'll do for the members that are on the committee, we just have kind of a roll call question for you, and just if you could maybe just answer what's your goals of being on this committee, or what's your vision for the committee?
Okay, so Muriel, do you want to start?
I'm Muriel Scott, and I've been back in Dundalk for the last 3 and almost a half years. Yeah, so my goal for the committee, I guess, would be that we develop a plan, and that we hopefully will achieve some implementation. I think we're talking a long-term plan when it comes to housing, because there's so many different kinds of housing for so many different kinds of people and needs. And we won't accomplish it all overnight, but I hope we have a long-term plan and some short-term goals within that are accomplishable fairly quickly.
Perfect, thank you. Morgan, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Hang on. Okay, so I'm Morgan McCannell, and my goals, it's mostly first to raise awareness for the housing issue in Southgate, and then, yeah, figure out some short-term and long-term solutions.
Perfect, thank you. Jerry?
My grandson Clark is with me just for a few minutes. His mom and dad will be coming to get him shortly. But he's kind of part of the reason, I guess, I'm thinking about this committee as being important. There are generational situations where, like, my generation is okay. Our kids have been fortunate, but we're kind of wondering what happens down the road to grandchildren. And then we look around and we see all the families that are currently struggling, and the pricing getting higher and getting out of reach. And so I think we would like to, my goal is to sort of try to figure out if there are ways to make things affordable for people, so that people who have lived and contributed to the area can stay in the area and not have to move away once they retire or reach their senior years. So, yeah.
Great, thanks, Jerry. Jennifer?
Yeah, hi. I'm one of the community reps, and I'm hoping that I can offer some perspective as someone that's lived in the community in Southgate for 21 years and has uh, been an educator in the Southgate community for over 30 years. And I'm retired from full-time teaching now, so I have time to maybe, do some worker bee type of jobs that can contribute in that way as well. Thanks.
Excellent, thank you. And our elected officials are Councillor Shipston and Councillor Shearson. Councillor Shipston, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Lindsay. To be honest, I didn't know whether I should be on this committee or not. But when I look at what's going on pre-COVID, après-COVID, and all the prices going up in our area, I think we have to do something, and this committee is a good start. I hope in the next 2 years we're not just another silo. We have to actually really coordinate with everybody, because housing isn't just housing. It's lifestyle, it's jobs, it's money. Like, there's a whole pile of things going on. So in the next 2 years, I'm really hoping that we can get some kind of consensus and understanding that there is a problem. If our youth move to the city, they're just as much in trouble there because the prices are so high for rent. We have to do something affordable. It's a holistic thing, and I think it has to be looked at. There's so many things to do. And I think one of the things that really hit me with this is when we first became part of council, there was one workshop where the mediator said, if you got into council because you think you can change the world, forget that idea. And I thought that was quite negative because, maybe I'm naive. Maybe we can change the world, but I think we can start doing something for our own township. And that is getting affordable housing, rent down, and start thinking out of the box, because that's what I think we have to do, and become more involved with United Way and all these things. So I think this could be a vanguard for Southgate, and I'm happy to be involved in at least in the next 2 years anyway. So
Okay, thank you.
something's got to be done.
Councillor Shearson?
Hello, everybody. Yeah, I got involved just because, I have a young son at home that's at the point that he would like to buy something and move out, but with the prices of everything in the area, there's absolutely no way that he could do it on his own. Again, I've got grandchildren here that, we've been involved in the community for generations, and seeing some of the people in the community leaving town just because they can get a good dollar for their house and move further away. It's hard for volunteers. Like, to lose volunteers in a small community is really rough. And volunteers, as you know, all work for nothing. So if you lose all those, you'll lose all your community functions. So yeah, I think we need to start somewhere, and I think that's the reason why I kind of joined.
Okay, and our Mayor, John Woodbury, is also an ex officio member on the committee. John?
Hi, welcome everybody. The things I'd like to see, we know there's the problems. I'd like to see those long-term solutions, but I'd really like to see us hit the ground with a running type of thing, where if we can find a few simple things that maybe can make a big difference for some people. So it's a short-term goals that I'd like to see kind of out front, so that we do have some success while we're making those long-term ones, because I think we can get a lot more people to buy in to the process and start working with developers or whoever we have to, if we can have a few little successes. So I'm looking forward to this.
Okay, thank you, everyone. So next on our agenda, we have a review of our terms of reference document. Dave, do you want to go over that?
Sure, I can take the lead on that if you wouldn't mind just pulling it up. Holly, are you the presenter? Good. Okay, and for those that are like me that need a bigger font, you could go to the right side of the screen and increase the size for more ease of reading the document. But I'm just going to go over it very quickly, and I imagine most people have read it and maybe deal with it more on a question answer basis. But first, the purpose of the Southgate Affordable Attainable Housing Advisory Committee will provide recommendations on an overall strategy for Council's consideration regarding the implementation of attainable housing plans to support homelessness prevention in the Township of Southgate. And just to maybe expand on that, that's just staff's shot at it. This is the committee's terms of reference. So we're gonna, at some point, I think after tonight, we leave it with you, and after the presentation, you'll see what is happening that you may or may not be aware of. And we can change this document to fit our short and long-term goals of the committee. I'm not going to really go into detail on responsibilities. If we just scroll down. And so the voting members there'll be 4 from the public, private sector, not-for-profits, possibly 2 municipal representatives from council that are here to kind of bridge the council discussions with this committee. But we do want to hear from the 4 representatives to get what your thoughts are, what your stories are, because everyone has a story. Sometimes we don't think about people moving back to Dundalk from maybe a northern area where the price of housing is much lower. So we're almost to a point where we are shutting people out from coming back here, whether they're young or older. But I think there's ways we can creatively do that. So as far as membership from a staff perspective, we're staff are non-voting. We're more of an advisory role. Should be the doers to find out information and invite people that you want to hear report to the committee. So myself as CEO, the clerk's department is here to support the committee administratively and put the meeting agendas together, do the minutes, and do those kind of heavy lifting for the committee. Our planner, Clint, is here tonight. We may invite, as required, the director of planning from the county to talk about the overall housing and or anyone else from his department that may be able to help us with an overall Grey County housing strategy to get more information on that. But Clint can report on a lot of that. We may be requiring the chief building official to come and talk to us, and as well the Terry's on the call tonight as Economic Development Officer, and she's quite informed on what's going on with some of the subdivisions, and especially with the growth in industrial commercial to create those jobs. So it's great to have housing, but I think we can do a bit of work on economic development to bring jobs closer, because if you don't have to run to the city, that's 2 hours of what I would call wasted time and gasoline to get there. And if we can put that money back into a house payment with good jobs back at home here, that would be a real win, I think, for us. But that's another look at it that we can maybe support the community. Next page, I'm just going to there's the duties of the chair and the vice chair. We've got in here quorum, that a majority of the members and at least 1 elected council official. It talks about reporting resources, meeting schedule, And at this point, we've got it for monthly or as determined by the committee at the end of each meeting. This term of the committee will be with council. So at the end of this council term, which is basically the end of November, we would likely look to reappoint the members that are interested in coming back for another 4 years, because we'll just be getting kind of some seeds growing over the next 12 months likely. And then remuneration for the committee is $35 per meeting. Glossary of terms. So there's a considerable number of glossary terms that we may be using. Accessibility, what affordable housing is. We kind of struggle with the name, so we threw in affordable and attainable. But there's the definition of what affordable housing is. Association of Municipalities of Ontario. They are a fair resource that we have provided the definition there. At-risk homelessness, average market value, Canadian mortgage and housing. I'm not going to go into each one of those in detail, but you can see that there's various organizations and definitions there that we may want to dive a bit deeper into. There's some planning terminology that Clint will maybe use, and we've put some of that in here. But at this point, I think we'll just, and likely the last one, there's a couple definitions we'll talk about in the presentation. And there's the opportunity for granny suites and secondary units. And I think that's a big opportunity through our official plan to look at policies in relation to that. And Clinton will talk a bit more about that, but I'll leave the terms of reference document for you to ponder. If there's any questions of clarity right now, we as staff would entertain those and try and answer them for you, or give us a call if you do have one later after the meeting. Any questions? Looking like there's none. Even our youngest member doesn't look like he has questions, but he looks pretty happy. I'll turn it back to you, Lindsay.
Yep. So next on the agenda is the election of our committee chair and the vice chair. So there's a little piece in the terms of reference. So basically the chair, I'm sure a lot are familiar with or are on other committees, but the chair kind of keeps the meeting moving, that sort of thing, kind of just presides over the whole meeting. And the vice chair would step in the chair's absence. So I have a motion here that the committee elect someone to chair the Affordable Attainable Housing Committee until the end of the term, which is November 2022. Does anyone want to put forward a name or put forward themselves? Muriel?
I would like to nominate Jerry to be our chair.
Okay. Jerry?
I appreciate that, Muriel, but I'm wondering if it might be more effective and efficient if one of our councillor reps became the chair. But I don't know how that worked with the terms of reference. Is that possible?
Yeah, that would be okay. Yeah.
I would nominate then Councillor Shipston.
Councillor Shipston? You're muted.
I actually was going to put Jerry in because talking to Muriel, she didn't want any part of it, but I was actually going to put Jerry's name in, but if Jerry would be the vice chair, I could certainly take that on. Or if Michael wants to chair, it's up in the air right now. I am part of other committees, so it's up in the air. I don't mind, but if Michael would want a shot, I certainly have no problem being vice chair.
Councillor Shearson?
I like the idea of Shipston McNulty.
Yeah,
I would be
okay.
okay. I'd be fine with that.
Well, I guess that's that then. So,
Muriel, you had a
Muriel,
question?
Yeah, I just,
Muriel, you have no intention of putting your name in, do you?
no, no, I'm glad to put other people forth for the opportunity, but,
I know, we had a good chat about that. That's fine.
yeah, I don't
Well,
know
I
if this is,
guess,
I don't know if this is a possibility, but is it, would it be appropriate to have a co-chair arrangement? So we have one elected person and then one public person. Is that a possibility or no?
I would say no, just thinking procedurally, but yeah, I would say no to that. I think you need to have a chair and a vice chair in their absence.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jennifer Morgan, do you have any comments?
You're muted, Jennifer.
No, I would be happy with any of the arrangements that have been put forth so far, from the expertise coming from the different people that are the elected versus community people.
Okay. Morgan, do you have a preference?
Yeah, I agree with Jennifer. Either's good.
So it sounds like Councillor Shipston as the chair and Jerry McNulty as vice chair.
yep, that's fine. Yep.
Okay, so Muriel, you moved that. Can I get a seconder? Councillor Shearson. Any opposed? Okay, and that is carried. So I will turn it over to you, Councillor Shipston, as the chair.
Okay, thank you. Just before we start, I do not see everybody on my iPad. The meetings at night, usually I'm not on my computer because everybody's home. So if you have anything to say, feel free and speak up loud, and we'll go from there, okay? So we will be having the item 6 confirmation of agenda. Be resolved that the committee confirm the agenda is presented. Any objections to that?
Just a mover and seconder.
A mover and
Councillor
seconder? Yep,
Yep.
sorry.
I'll move.
That's okay.
And seconded? That's carried. Declaration of pecuniary interest. If you have anything to say, you can say it now, but since we've just started, I don't think there will be anything. But if anything comes up in the middle of the meeting, feel free to declare any interest that you might have. Number 8 is delegations and presentations, and it says none here, which is quite fitting. We've only just got started. So it will come to adoption of minutes, which is fairly easy. We have none. So we'll come to number 10, staff updates, staff presentation for discussion. And that will be who will that be, Dave? You or
Yeah,
Kaylee or
Clint and I are going to tag team this
Clint?
one.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much.
So I'll start it off, and maybe what I'll do is just refer back to the delegations and presentations. Under new business, don't be afraid to speak up, and after we go through this presentation, you may have a thought, or you may already have somebody in your mind, because I know there's been discussions amongst some members of who we should invite to hear what they may be able to do for us, or become more informed in relation to affordable, attainable housing for Southgate. So let's have that discussion under new business, but we'll get right into it. We wanted to really give you a look at what's going on in Southgate right now, and present some options and where we want to focus. And so if you just go to the first slide, please, or the second slide, please. Sometimes these things take a bit to roll over, but anyway, so really this is a housing sector discussion, and we want to establish the focus of the committee. So I think the discussion is what are we looking at? Are we looking at rental? Are we looking at starter homes? And are we looking at seniors options? Is there one of those that, you know, let rental take care of itself? Or is the committee interested in really focusing on all those? Because right now, if you know, to open a door and have all of those available to us, it's not there, but some of those are developing. So I guess maybe, do you want to discuss these slide by side, or do you want to, you know, wait till the end of my presentation and we'll discuss what we think the focus should be? It's up to the committee. What's your preference, Mr. Chair?
Well, I think because there's so much going on, I think it would be nice to go page by page.
Okay.
And everybody could write notes and then do questions
Yeah.
at the end.
Okay, sure.
If that's okay.
And if somebody has one that, gee, I want to really delve into that discussion a bit deeper, please put your hand up or yell. And I mean, if you want, maybe turn your mics on and we'll see if there is a lot of background noise. Sometimes these things work out okay with microphones on. So don't be afraid to yell, shout, or if you can throw something at me, do that too. Next slide is about really the rental focus piece. There are some options in our planning process, and one of the big ones that the province has provided to us is secondary suites. So that's basically the creation of a basement apartment that would provide a rental unit for someone that wants to you know, live in the community, work in the community. And when you think of it, I also think of it as another option is if you were a young person and you were going to buy a home, maybe a secondary suite within that new purchase might be the way that you leverage to get more income to support that mortgage. Granny suites are another option for larger properties. They're more generational in nature to help the older members of the family that may be single have living accommodations on the farm or on a larger property, or it can be employee housing options for to support farm working. Multi-unit development projects. We have the Flato Seniors Apartments. And by the way, this Saturday at Terry, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think 12 o'clock, they're having a kind of an open house barbecue. So you would be invited to attend that for sure and see. I think it would be very good for all of us, or some of us, to attend if it's possible, to see that project, and I think it's going to be very helpful. About 70 units and seniors only accommodations. Flato also are doing a project at the corner of Ida Street in Maine. If you don't know those streets, it's next to the cemetery, just to, the first property heading into town beside the cemetery. And it's going to be an apartment project, but they're starting in the planning process. When will a door open? It likely be, you know, Clint, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but 24 to 36 months before there'll be a door open there, because they're going through their planning process. Anything you want to add on those comments that I didn't give good explanation for, Clint?
No, not at this time. I can touch on some of that stuff in a little more detail later on.
Sure. You could take a deeper dive into the planning side of it. So next slide, Holly. So starter home options, we've had a fair bit of talk about these types of options related to tiny homes. And, you know, tiny homes are, I think you see them on these TV shows on home accommodation type TV shows, and they're very small. My vision would be is would somebody have the vision to, or could we change policies to support maybe 5 or 4 of these tiny homes on a 2-acre parcel of land in a rural lot with a common water well and a common septic system to support these small homes, kind of a condominium arrangement that they'd have to have an agreement as property owners. But you know, should we be looking at those very, very low floor print, small floor print homes for to get really people started? You know, you could likely get something in the order of 100,000 or a little more, a little less in relation to a house itself. When I talk about housing park development, or kind of maybe the older terminology has been trailer parks, like what's on 89. We have a project in the planning stages, again, likely 2 years away from really seeing maybe cement being poured, maybe 12 months, I'm not sure. But it's being developed and would have a senior section to it with the planning that's underway, and as well a you know, kind of that family accommodation where you would rent the land and your lot and be provided water and sewage disposal services by the property owner. We have, in relation to these types of tiny homes or modular homes that could be constructed, we have 2 new construction companies or businesses coming to town. One at 5 Keppel Street, you'll know it as the Alumabunk property, and former Sealy and Arnell for guys like Jerry that and I'm sure Muriel remembers when they were here. But at the Alumabunk property, Flex Modular is a company that's setting up there, and they are creating modular construction pieces to put together on site, or they are taking what I would call sea containers and converting them into living quarters, quite attractive looking units when they're done. Casa Terra is another company that they are actually the ones that are also developing the housing park development in rural Southgate. But Casa Terra bought about 7 acres of land in the eco park, and they will be constructing modular roof panels, wall panels, and floor panels, I believe, to construct, again, modular homes and put them together. Fully insulated panels with the option of, you know, running hydro and plumbing in the walls. Then there's full property ownership on a, you know, on a smaller scale. You know, do we need to? I think the discussion is, you know, do we need to look at policy official plans that will allow like these tiny homes or something between a you know, a single family dwelling and a tiny home that would be more in that maybe 900 or 1,000 square feet to it. But Clint will talk about that a little bit more. So that's the starter home discussion. Next slide. There is also property ownership options that we can consider. Like I talked about that tiny home little development, back-to-back homes with front and side yards, outdoor spaces that are common. So those homes would be back-to-back and more of a they could be on grade depending on the construction, but there wouldn't be a backyard, so it would bring down the price point considerably with common spaces, and it would also kind of likely get in a bit into that condo style of maintenance of the grass and the roadway by hired contracting. We talked about smaller footprint homes, second floor condos for commercial properties, and townhomes. Today we had someone actually talking about constructing condos that would be like, instead of it being an apartment building, it would be a saleable condo apartment style property that people would own the unit, and again there would be condo fees for managing outside. What the discussion I had with the developer was that the price point for a single bedroom condo would be around $339, but that's, who knows, that would have to be developed further and further discussions on that. Next slide. Housing purchasing pressures. There are purchasing pressures out there that, can we do something about it? Maybe not. But what we're seeing is residential property demands, even offers over asking price. Those market prices are making it very difficult, as we know, for people to buy locally. The travel time to the GTA and larger communities are forcing people to come up here and driving our prices up. But also the lack of local job options adds extra cost to living expenses, which I kind of spoke a little bit about earlier. That I think if we can do some work, and there's a lot of work going on to bring commercial, industrial jobs to our area, and I think hopefully we'll see some of those come to fruition in the next few months. That more jobs locally and people can live here and put those travel costs towards a mortgage payment instead. Planning guidance, and maybe I'll just turn it over to Clint to talk about these issues related to planning and housing.
Thanks, Dave. Welcome, everyone. I'm Clint Stredwick, the planner for the township. So I'm just going to talk about planning for a moment here. Planning isn't a fix-all for everything. What it is it a toolkit, hopefully, that we can develop to help generate policy that will eventually make things better for whatever we're talking about. So in the case of affordable housing, there's a bunch of little things we can do within planning and the guidance documents that the township has. For example, the official plan, we're currently reviewing that. We can put in policy in there that's supportive and encourages certain types of housing. We may even have a tiered system where it's preferred over other types of housing and therefore given special treatment. We can look at the parameters for development, so tiny homes and whatnot. Right now, there's no such thing as a tiny home in Southgate because they're not permitted in the zoning bylaw. And so if that's something we want to encourage, to make houses smaller and therefore hopefully more affordable for someone starting out building them, there's a couple things we can encourage that in the official plan, but then we can also change the zone standard in the zoning plan. The official plan has to come first, and then we would do the zoning bylaw. But if we could get that done, that might be one hurdle that we could check off our box pretty quickly within the next 6 months, say, to have a small, I guess, small hanging or low hanging fruit to say, hey, look, this is something we've done that will help. It's not going to fix anything, but it will help. The same goes with building size policies and changing how we want to look at housing, really. For the last 30 or 40 years, it's always been you have to have a single family dwelling on a 50-foot lot, and everyone's got to own it. But I don't think that's going to be the case going forward. I think there's going to be a case where we've already talked about making it smaller, but also different types of housing. Back in the 70s and 60s, there was lots of rental housing constructed. Lots of apartments and things went up at that time. Maybe we're in that cycle of housing again, where we're going to see more of that type of development. Condos are another option now, and life leases are another option for some people, for typically more the senior element of the population, but still. So those are just some of the things that planning can get into with by changing policy to help attain the goals that we want. So I'm just gonna, next slide here. Okay, so we've currently retained Ron Davidson. He's a land use planner. He's excellent. He's been around for 30 odd years in the planning business, and he's currently hard at work on our a new official plan review. So as part of that process, he presented to council some very specific questions, which I believe were included in the agenda, were they not, Dave? As an attachment?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you had a look at that, it asked council a number of questions about various topics, and from severances to secondary suites and affordable housing, and putting policy in there, because quite frankly, right now, our housing policy is non-existent in the official plan. Our plan is about 10 years old, and 10 years ago, housing was not a big issue. It certainly is now. So adding that, I think, will be important. I hope this committee will be a part of the process for informing the official plan. As we work through it, there'll be open houses and public meetings, and I would even suggest we would give this committee a look at the draft document beforehand to provide comments to Ron to help inform and shape the policy for around affordable housing. So that'll be an opportunity for this committee to, again, help shape how we tackle some of these issues. And so next slide here. So affordable housing, there are different definitions of it depending on how you define it or look at it. There's a PPS definition, and I think CMHC has another definition. I think we can pick one, but I don't think we want to get caught up on defining it necessarily as we have to hit this goal of annual housing expenses not exceeding 30% of gross household income. To me, it's more important for this committee to say, we want to work on this, and by this I mean we want to work on lowering land prices or values, I guess it would be, lowering housing costs, increasing jobs to make it more affordable for people to stay and work in the area. All of those kinds of things. Maybe we look at initiatives like that to work towards that. Increasing the housing supply in general is something. So making it less cumbersome to trying to create new housing. If there's ways we can cut some red tape to make it more affordable and quick, because that old expression, time is money, right? So that's certainly some other things we can look at. So there we go. There's a number of projects here that are certainly working towards bringing on that supply. However, I would suggest that this supply is relieving pressures in another market, meaning a lot of the people buying these homes are actually from the GTA area, in which case yes, it's great, we're getting new people to our community, and more people usually means more people to support local businesses, etc. But it also means that the building of these homes is essentially supplying homes for another market to relieve the pressures in the GTA as opposed to here. So how do we how do we change that, or what should we do to address that concern? So I'm not going to read them all there, but there's in that list there's over 1,000 units in housing, and I would say 2/3 of them are already constructed or in the process of being constructed.
So maybe Clint, I'll just make some comments and take it back from here.
Sure.
I want to talk about, like Clint reported on Ron Davidson. Why did we go outside and bring in an outside consultant? Well, I think there's a couple reasons. One is we're extremely busy with processing applications now internally. And I think the second is Ron is and we were very lucky that he won the bid. He's a very highly recognized planner in Grey County with vast experience, and I think it's good to have someone come in and take a kind of a look at it from 30,000 feet above, Southgate, and take a look down and have an outside view at this. So we're really lucky to get Ron. The document that in the previous, that's something we provided to you. That's Ron's report, but we inserted specifically his comments about affordable housing that he presented to council. And there's a guy that we may want to take a look at. Maybe just go back to that previous slide. I want to run down that list. So back one more. Okay, so no, back. Yeah, there we go. So Flato North is the property that used to be the Elliott property. It butts against Lizanti subdivision. So that's nearing completion. The houses in beside the Lizanti subdivision are being constructed now, and there's been all approvals for that subdivision completed. White Rose Phase 1 and Phase 2 on the north end is also nearing completion. The Flato Seniors Apartment, which if you want to visit on Saturday, please do so, but it's well underway, and I'm sure people will be living in that building sometime next year. Flato East is starting construction, and that's the former McDonald farm, and they're doing some of the project. We've approved some more of the project, but once they cross over what we call the Foley Drain, which is the drain through that original farmland, they need to pump sewage across to get it to go uphill. So that's one of the things they're working on for future growth out to Highway 10. But I would envision that whole project on the south side of Dundalk, abutting onto Highway 10, will likely be completed likely in the next 3 to 4 years. I don't think that's overly aggressive, Clint. Maybe you know more than I, but I think 3 to 4 years they'll be wrapping things up pretty well. Flato Gunnell Carriage House. So that for the locals, that's the former Doc Laheed farm. It's on the north end, northwest corner of Dundalk, and they are starting their phase 2 construction. They're fully approved, and the building department will be issuing permits any day now. Next slide. Flato Canal Phase 2, so that's another part of that Laheed farm to the north. That's under planning process right now. White Rose Phase 3, that's at the end of Bradley Street, and that's under planning development phase right now. Flato Eco Park, possibly economical residential housing, and that's next to Ida Street. That's up for discussion yet, but they are definitely looking at possibly, if they can do it from a planning perspective, having some homes there at abutting onto Ida Street. We've talked earlier about Flato Ida Street Apartments, which is at the corner of Ida and Main Street. There's a lot of initial planning going on there. And we've even talked about, for example, maybe a roundabout to do traffic calming if there gets to be more traffic in that area for the entrance to town. Ida Street South Housing Development. I don't have the name of the developer off the top of my head. Clint's worked quite a bit with them, but in behind the Metal Systems building, there's a property there where they will be developing. They're away doing their planning processes right now. And then the Flato Row property, it'll be north of Braymore Street, and so they'll be developing kind of in the pines next to the fairgrounds and north of Braymore. So it can be accessed through both McDowell Street and I believe it's Mill Street. Next slide. Future housing projects, there's talk of senior subdivisions. There's been talk in the past like of a gated community. Those type of developments would be like single or family dwellings or single dwellings, smaller footprint, cement on grade without a basement, but on grade access, so it's easy to get from a garage if they have one into the home on the same grade. And then there's going to be downtown development. We're seeing it start to, redevelop the older buildings downtown, and so we may be able to facilitate, improvement of housing in the second and third floors of some of those buildings. And we talked about, like, I haven't even put it in this slide, but the condo discussion, that's been just a thought. Now it's, we're seeing initial, very early proposals in relation to that. So we'll stop there. If there's any questions on any of those, we can ratchet back to the slide that I see Jerry's got his hand up.
It's just a point of clarification. We've talked an awful lot. You've talked about Dundalk a lot, and that would make sense because the majority of the activity is happening in Dundalk. But this, to be fair to all of Southgate, we need to be looking at, I think, all of Southgate and what might be happening in Holstein or what might be happening in Wilders Lake or in Proton Station or in other areas, and whether that maybe comes up against some of the agricultural land policies, whether that needs to be considered too. But just the point is that this needs to be for Southgate, not just Dundalk.
And that point is taken. Maybe I think Clint maybe either can respond to that, or we can have a more lengthy discussion. The issue with we pretty much now are forced into, if you're going to have any kind of significant development, it would need to be on water and sewers, to make a huge impact. I think there are lots of record that we can develop on some of these checkerboard farm lots. I think there needs to be some look at that. Can we take a 2 or 5 acre parcel and turn it into a tiny home development? There is some development at Wilders Lake, but the price point, I wouldn't call it affordable or attainable. Developments around Holstein has its challenges with water and sewers. But there is a development Clint can maybe speak about that may be coming forward in Con. But Clint, can you expand on that more and answer Jerry's questions?
Sure.
Or comments?
Sure. So this is where I guess planning sort of has its shackles put on, I guess, if you will, by the province. All of the policy is directed by the provincial policy statement. And that policy statement is like essentially the Bible, which all of the other policy stems from. So your official plan, your zoning, all of that have to be consistent with the provincial policy. And that provincial policy essentially creates a hierarchy of servicing. And it says priority number 1 is full municipal services. That is where you're to direct the majority of your growth. So I think we actually put a projection in that 80% would go to fully serviced areas, and that other 20% would go to other rural communities. So whether it's Swinton Park or Holstein or Drumore, limited development could happen there as well. But because they're all on private servicing, it's small, right? Like, yes, we're seeing, I think Dremora has actually seen quite a number of new homes in the last little while, but they're from existing lots of record. However, they're now being built. It's that kind of development that we're seeing. Putting a new subdivision out in the countryside is pretty much against provincial policy, and therefore very hard to support at a local level anywhere in the province. The days you've probably seen some of them that happened about 20 years ago, that what we call the Hoffman subdivision, which is on the west end, just on Gray Road 109 there. There is some rural plans of subdivision there, but I think those are what I would call the last remnant of that kind of planning in this area, where now provincial policy has been tightened up so much that it only allows minimal development in rural areas. And the primary reason the province does that is to protect agriculture. Southgate is an agricultural community. That's their primary resource and employer, pretty well, is agriculture. And they try and protect that resources, because once you pave over prime ag land, it's not coming back. So they try and preserve that as best they can in the policy. So that's where all of that sort of stems from, and that's why we end up being limited in planning with those provincial policies.
So Clinton Martin here. So
Yep.
basically, Dundalk for Southgate Township is the place for development, because it's the biggest settlement.
For large scale, yes. For large scale development. There are opportunities where if there's existing lots of record, there's a few in, I'll say, Cedarville, or in Swinton Park, where there are lots of record that were there previously, but they just haven't been developed. They can be reorganized and zoned accordingly and then developed, provided they can demonstrate that private wells and private septic systems can be put on the lots and supported for the long period. So we don't want it to come back in 20 years' time and find everyone's well is contaminated. That's what we want to avoid.
Yep. Thank you.
Maybe I'll jump on, Martin, just to Jerry's question. And I don't want to lose sight of there still is lots of rural options in relation to secondary suites and granny suites.
Absolutely.
And the housing park type developments, where I think we need to look at this as almost price points of where can we get people in. Can we create a price point for a house? Maybe not with the property, but at least they could have a residence and they lease the land that, through these modular home developments or so on, or trailer park type homes that you pull the wheels off and set them down a pad of cement. Can we get a price point where somebody could get started with ownership at 100,000? Can we get something that's maybe a bit more robust for a family that could be at 200 to 300,000, or one of these condos at 335? But I think when we're talking about most of the housing that I talked about, the flattos and the way they're constructing right now, we're not talking about affordable and attainable homes for those young people that are trying to get started, or for seniors that are trying to retire, singly, but is this committee looking at strictly ownership, or are we looking at rental accommodations to fill that gap as well? That's something I think we need to rationalize with, and do we continue reporting to you on rental accommodations, or kind of do we just leave that to the marketplace to settle the price points there? But there are some things we can do. I mean, in relation to keeping these price points down, if you build in Dundalk a home and it's a single family home, we charge about $20,000 for development charges. In the rural area, it doesn't have water and sewers. That's down more around that. I'm just gonna look at my documents here, but around that $5,000–6,000 range. But if we wanted to do an affordable, attainable housing project with a developer, we could maybe look at the municipality absorb those costs to support a lower price point type of construction and home to get people in at a more of affordable rate. But there's, and Clint would have to go into that in more detail, but there are, I think, planning that can be done to maintain those homes at affordable levels too, long term.
Okay.
Anyway, that I'm hoping that, but we're definitely not focusing on Dundalk, but Dundalk gets driven that way because of a lot of our rules. You know, Christie Street was created, you know, with those rural checkerboard lots and the farm at the corner of 22 and County Road 14, and there's ones further down towards Cedarville, you know, large 4 or 5 acre lots that, you know, people are plunking a home on. Not efficient use of land, but is there a way to rezone some of that land to, you know, multi-housing type, shared servicing type developments to create affordability?
Okay. Muriel, you had your hand up.
Yeah, just going back, I was wondering if we could have or I could have a definition of lots of record. Didn't know that term.
So a lot of record is something that has been severed in the past off a farm. So some of these homes that are severed off the corner of a property, but they may not, they're usually not built on. That's why we call them lots of record. And they tend to be in that, some of them are as big as 10 acres, but you know, usually that 4 or 5 acres. If you go for a lot severance and try and get one, yeah, it has to be a minimum of 2.
Okay.
Anything you want to add there, Clint?
Yeah, so it's a legal lot of record is simply a lot that's been established by some process in the past, whether it's through in what we call the checkerboard patterns in the 60s, or whether it's the subdivision control process where a plan of subdivision has come through, or whether it's a consent process where someone has severed off a lot. All of those are legal processes to create a lot from the original township lot fabric. And when that's done and registered, it's a legal lot of record.
Muriel?
But not necessarily saying what kind of housing or buildings go on it?
No.
That would be a separate process?
Exactly.
Okay.
It's just, we're talking about just the lot, the vacant parcel.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any more questions from anybody else about this? Jennifer, did you have anything or?
Not really, no. Not directly to do with this presentation. I have questions, but this isn't the best time for them at this point, so thanks.
Okay. So Dave, Clinton, are you done with your presentation? Maybe we can lead right into the question and answer period. We have almost an hour left, so
Yep.
Would that be okay with you guys?
Yeah, I'm done presenting. You know, if we're done with questions and answers here, yeah, we can move on to kind of new business and open it up for discussion.
I did want to say, Clinton, I'm glad that you mentioned the GTA marketplace with all this stuff going up in Dundalk. It is to supply a need that is not Southgate. So I think that was very important to bring forward in this meeting, because there may be some things we could change about that. You know, get builders to focus more here now. So anyway, the floor is open. Again, I only have a number of you on my screen, so if you want to have a question to Dave, Clinton, myself, John, anybody, just make your voice known. I do have a few of you. So Jerry, was that you having a question or just?
A question. just around or a comment about the rental. I think we look at housing as housing, and so rental for many people that's the way they live. It's a rental, but it needs to be a home, a good, decent, affordable, attainable rental. So earlier there's comment about whether we continue to look at rentals, but probably part of the crisis that we're in is related to the fact that there are fewer rentals because the properties are being sold because the houses are increasing in, or the buildings are increasing in value. So I don't think we limit ourselves too much. We look at housing and getting housing, attainable, accessible housing for as many people as possible.
Okay. For myself, I would tend to agree with that. In the OP, Clinton, what is the limit of the height for rental buildings now? Is it 4 stories like Flato, or could we actually put that on the OP about going higher? Or what does that include or mean?
Right now, I believe our limit is 4 stories. There's a couple of reasons for that. One of them actually is to, and correct me if I'm wrong, Councillor Woodbury, the height of the building, we don't necessarily have a fire department that that is trained in big skyscrapers, nor will they fit in with the existing development. If everything is 3 stories and then you put a 10-story apartment building right beside it, it looks really out of place. And then the amount of servicing for that one block becomes immense. So everything from parking, because we don't have a lot of public transit in the area, whether it's water, policing, fire, all of that is really, really concentrated. Now, increasing density is sort of the name of the game in terms of trying to get more efficient use of land and smaller units, etc. But there comes a point where if you go too high, it really does stick out. A prime example of this is when you drive into Collingwood from Owen Sound on Highway 26. Yeah. As you come into Collingwood, there's this big 10-story apartment right on the side of the highway on 26, and it looks really out of place because everything around it is like 2 stories. So.
And we get into that shadowing thing that you enlightened me on the other day.
Yes, and then there's that.
There's that, which I never would have thought of. So, okay, any other questions?
Michael here.
Yep, Michael, go ahead.
Yeah, we talk about, the cost of everything, but yet we see hotels, motels, that's where people are living nowadays. So how can a motel be any, they're not on sewers, they're not on public water. How are they getting away with it cost-wise? Like, you say we can't do that in the country, but yet they're doing it. Like Corbin down there, pretty much every one of those buildings down there is a family living in those buildings. So I don't know why we can't have those kind of communities out in the country. There's got to be ways to make these work. Because I mean, you talk about 300,000, but 300,000 for Southgate for a 1-bedroom apartment. None of these kids can afford it to live around here. So I mean, we got to find something cheaper. I don't know. There was a community in the city that I used to like, and they were all townhouses, but they were only like 1 and 2 bedroom townhouses built on concrete. There was no basement, just a single car garage, but they were all connected and they all had little streets. And I mean, they were all seniors in there, but there's no reason why, we can't do that in the country here. I don't know why it can't be done. We're doing it in motels now, so I can't see why we can't do it.
I might interject there. Before this meeting, I looked at some of my own notes, and it was the first AMO conference I went to. And on the third last day, there was a panel discussion, and it was about this. And this was like almost 3 years ago now, 3.5 years, whatever. And they had the president of the GTA housing, their group. He was talking, and he says they only build to what the market demands. And I looked at that just this week, and I said, well, no, they're building what they want. They're making the market. So I think maybe Clinton in the OP that's coming up, we could put some kind of, not the inclusionary or zoning practices like Gray wants to do, but maybe we could ask them to say, hey, instead of start building a different market, start putting up these 1,000-square-foot homes with not granite countertops, building a nice, comfortable home for 200,000 or 300,000 that somebody might be able to afford. I know my boys couldn't, and they both had good jobs. So, here's a guy 3 years ago saying they're building to the market. No, they actually influence and make the market as well. So is there some way in the new OP that we could, without harming the developer, we don't want the developers to come, but in a good social conscience, if they could put 30% of the buildings without having, I've got it here, the inclusionary zoning is a complicated matter which requires the price of the house to remain affordable as the house is sold from owner to owner. Well, the whole point, Jerry just mentioned it, your house is your home. Even if your apartment is your home, you don't like the builder's beige on the wall, you're going to ask the landlord, can I paint this? Because you want to make it yours. You want to make improvements. So the inclusionary zoning, how much do you want to put into your building if you know you can only get so much, a little bit more than what you paid for? So is that something that we could put in the OP, Clinton or Dave? Is that something that is possible legally?
Certainly, inclusionary zoning is possible.
I don't like it, but
I was going to say you're not alone there. I think there's certainly, in a perfect world, yes. Getting a developer to do it is extremely difficult because they can't see a point where they can pay everyone and pay the prices of lumber and their bricklayers and all of that stuff, because that's another issue is labor shortages, where they're having to pay more for labor to keep them around, which is bricklayers. So
may I interject?
Developers aren't going to want to do it. So maybe there's an opportunity to try and encourage it, and you might find a smaller scale developer or what we call the community angel, that comes in and who's looking to be more of a benefactor to the community, who has some independently wealthy. That has happened in the past in other communities. You can also, maybe it's something the township wants to take on, in terms of, there's nothing saying the township couldn't set up something where we provide all of the servicing to it, and we set it up so a person just has to buy the lot and build the home, right? And we make sure it doesn't go to a developer, and that it goes to an individual. That's maybe a possibility, because the township can do work a little cheaper than developers can. We do it for economic development all the time, where we create an eco park and then we sever off a lot for each one and provide water and sewer to it.
Yeah.
Theoretically, we could do that for residential as well, if it's in the right spot.
Yeah. Well, I don't agree with the inclusionary zoning, because you can't really tell somebody what to build. And 30%, that is a big chunk out of the developer. What I meant to say was if a developer came in, and you mentioned the point where they have trouble in getting masons to do the brick. Well, have 30% of the homes clad in vinyl. Have 30% of the homes not having their graphite and concrete and all these fancy insides. Just ask them, can you just build a comfy hole? As Jerry said, you don't need anything fancy. What's a new family? Do they really care if they have granite countertops? They want somewhere to live, right? Is there a way legally we could say to any new development, would you be willing to do this? Like build a house for the building code and all that, but forget about all the niceties that people expect these days. Because I know for a lot of people that go into these homes, they're already moving into a home that their parents worked 40 years in 4 houses to get what they moved out of, and they're going back in. So that's the problem with this too. There's an expectation, and the builders are feeding into that expectation of the people now. Can you,
well,
is there something to do there?
Maybe I'll
Dave?
respond to that. I know Morgan wants to say something, which I want to hear from our members, and let's hear what they have to say. But I do want to respond to that. That let's remember, this is very market driven. It's
True.
Somebody isn't setting the price point, and you have to pay this. There's competition. So what we have to do is we have to create a competition at a lower price point through some of these more affordable housing solutions, like a housing development that they pay for leasing the land and have a trailer park or a modular home that is not large, but at least it's a starter home, and get maybe we have to work with Greg County to get subsidized rent, but there's no sense in us talking about marble and granite because that's not going to be there. We got to talk to developers about these lower price point homes that can get people started. And that may be rental solutions to graduate to a modular home, to graduate to a back-to-back or a condo or something. But let's not worry about the big ones. We got to talk to developers, and I think we need the county on board to help us with some of these decisions on affordable housing solutions at the lower end. Anyway, let's hear from Morgan.
Yeah, Morgan,
Hi.
go ahead.
Okay, so I just have a comment as a young person and, seeking affordable housing. We've been talking a lot about, and it goes off, I think, Michael's point, Jerry, we've been talking a lot about rentals and buying a house, and that feels kind of out of touch, like $350,000 for a 1-bedroom. And we have people living couch to couch, and I think rental is where we need to be, like just any sort of housing. You said affordable housing is 30% of your income. Well, if you take that on a minimum wage, that's about $500 a month for a 1-bedroom. And like, that's pretty hard to find. And if that's what we're kind of ballparking affordable, do you know what I mean? Like, yes, buying a home and getting into a home is something we've been used to. It's what generations before us did. We've had the privilege of that as a rural community, but I think it feels maybe the starting point is something smaller. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Am I out of touch here? But like,
No,
yeah,
no,
obviously
no.
buying a home feels important and it's culturally significant to us, but we also have to recognize that like we literally have homeless people in our community, secret homeless, and they're not buying $350,000 1-bedrooms. They're family and elderly who need affordable spaces to rent, affordable homes to rent.
Okay.
Those are awesome comments. Just saying.
Yep.
And make sure, Clint included a document for us, this life lease housing. That may be, like instead of maybe a $300,000 condo, this is a price point at something less, and it's basically you get the property for significantly less, or I'm not sure what the numbers are, but once you pass, the owner passes, that's the end of the lease of the property. But it's another option. But I think we need to hear from the committee as to where do we go from here? What's the next meeting? Like, so where do you want to hear from? Like delegations, how many do we want in a meeting? Who would those delegations be to really get your knowledge base increased let's then go forward with talking about more affordable housing or projects. Like I know, Clint, what do you think about Casa Terra or the Mythwood project coming forward and speaking to them about his project? He could at least show, he does have a kind of a site plan for that housing development, trailer modular home type development.
Yeah, we actually have a meeting with them in a couple weeks, I believe. So I think after that meeting, like I haven't seen that site plan yet. So once we have this meeting with them and we get their okay, then sure, I don't have a problem. They haven't actually applied for anything, so technically it's still a little confidential.
But we could show them the concept plan of what they're thinking, and that would I think be a bit more information for the committee to look at. I mean, we could invite somebody like Ron Davidson to talk about our official plan and what policies we could put in place related to tiny homes and small.
We're definitely like
and I'm not sure it's just once, it's likely 2 or 3 times.
I'm actually meeting with Ron on Thursday to talk about things like that, and I can certainly suggest coming to this committee to talk about specific policies that can be included in the official plan, and maybe later in October or November, whichever. But certainly we can do that.
And
like
Clinton,
this is. Go ahead.
Yeah, Clinton, and we were talking the official plan to maybe look at the downsizing the actual footprint of the homes to maybe 800 or keeping it around 1,000, because what was Greg County's going down as low as 6 or something, which I think is kind of silly, but
so
800 is a condo in Toronto.
So
square feet, right?
Currently it's 1,130 square feet, which we've had lots of people come in and say, well, we only want 800 or 900. What we're actually thinking about doing, there's 2 schools of thought. One is get rid of it altogether and let the market sort of dictate that. But ultimately, it's not the market that dictates the minimum size. It's the Ontario Building Code. And so what we look at it is we say, rather than have a minimum, we just say, let the Ontario Building Code set the minimum. So, and that's based on how much space you have for washrooms, bedrooms, kitchens, and all of that sort of thing. You need minimums for that. And so it works out to be about 500 or 600 square feet, which for a bachelor pad is probably fine. And leave it at that. So we could put policy in the official plan that would then direct us to change the zoning bylaw, which we could do early next year, hopefully.
Okay, because I'm getting the feel here from other members that we're looking at more rental and more affordable sized homes as far as starters. If I'm assuming anything wrong there, please correct me, but we're definitely looking at rentals for the way to go, I would think. Is that right, Jerry, Muriel?
One of the things that we've not talked about, I think, is supportive housing too, supported housing. We know that there are some living situations where there needs to be support included. And this could be where we get the community health center involved as well, or partner with them. But there are situations where it's not just providing the space, a nice, comfortable space. It's providing some of the support so the person can be successful in that space. So I think, again, if we're serious about housing for everyone, then we've got to at least be thinking about that too. What does that look like, and how do we? Is it through Grey County Housing? Is it through partnerships with social service agencies? I'm not sure what all the possibilities are there, but Muriel, the wise Muriel Scott once said in a meeting a few months ago that there is not just one solution. There has to be almost a custom-made solution for every situation. That's how complex this whole housing thing is now. So.
Yeah. No, that's exactly true. Because we're looking at all kinds of different silos. The United Way, the people who look for food security and minimum wage, and we're it's going to take 2 years to just try and get partnerships going with a lot of this. But anyway, Muriel, you had your hand up.
I'm just thinking that, I don't know Anne Marie Shaw. I've heard her referenced many times, but would she be a good person to talk about some of the subsidized housing arrangements, who the partners need to be, what the relationships need to be, that kind of stuff? Because I think I'm with Jerry all the way in terms of we need to think about all the people and all the different kinds of needs, as hard as that is. And we, like, housing is just the start. Some people need help maintaining that housing. But I really like the idea of working with local partners, and Dave was mentioning these new businesses. So I hope we can get to them too, to help us actually create whatever we're going to do. But I'm thinking maybe we need to know more of the possibilities too. I'm also interested in knowing what other townships are doing to solve this problem. It certainly isn't just a Southgate problem.
Yeah. No. Dave, before, are there any other municipalities with the task force like this, or were you guys the first one?
To my knowledge, we're the first one. I mean, this is a Southgate problem for sure. It's all over. I mean, the price point of these houses, it's in Meaford, it's in Grey Highlands. It's actually cheaper to buy and own Sound than is in Meaford right now. But it's still over $500,000 to get anything. So I mean, that's just not, and these crazy $2,000 a month for rental. I mean, it just blows my mind compared to what was back in my day. But I think we need to. I think Anne Marie Shaw would be excellent, and I think we need to hear from some of these lower price point options, like the housing development. We talked about this Mythwood project, and it's too bad that we couldn't get together and maybe walk the property, but that's maybe a project that you can see from an aerial photo. We could show that and do a bit of a presentation there. But this is going to be one of the toughest committees I think you're ever going to serve on, because it's going to take a lot of hard work, and it's going to take a lot of multi-pronged solutions. I mean, getting these planners, are you listening, Clint? And they want to solve this too, but it's a very, very difficult, challenge. We need, but I think the more, even if the rent is like, $2,000 a month, but the more stock we develop, the more saturation we develop, the more options we have, we'll try and bring those price points down. But I think if we're really talking about what Morgan talked about, is couch surfing, and Michael mentioned about people don't want to live in motels. They're living in motels because the motels have the space. They don't have renters going by every night. So but that's not the solution either. I mean, that and let me tell you, that's not in Southgate either. So but we need to have some Southgate solutions, whether that's tiny homes, whether it's modular homes, to at least get people started. And if they are able to buy a $200,000 starter property or home, and then they can graduate and get started. But like Jerry said, we need to get rental as well looked after. So I think we need to, hear the communications of being able to, build these $300,000 or $400,000 properties. That's, like most everything in Dundalk is 500 and up. So at least get those underway and see some progress. But how do we get somebody into a home, between 100 and 200,000 to at least get started? And even that's likely going to take a couple people to, to pay the mortgage. But there's all these other options that we can, provide to. I think secondary suites is a big option to increase housing stock quickly. And Clint will be working on policies in relation to that. I mean, some of them are already there, but granny suites are another option that many people don't know about. That that elderly person in the family that has another 10, 15, 20 years on this great earth. They have a place to retire with their family that we can make it affordable and not have to maybe they can have a trailer beside the house and share the septic system and the well, and those are happening. But we just, anyway, I think we need to, if you're interested, we can invite Anne Marie Shaw to the next meeting, because I think that's definitely one that's under pressure, and see what the interest is. There's other options. I think Muriel's heard of Abbeyfield, and I'm sure Jerry has well, but we have talked about buildings like the Erskine Center. What's the next evolution of it? Maybe the best solution for the Erskine Center after we build the medical center is turn it into an Abbeyfield, and that's just throwing out a discussion. We don't know, but there needs to be some. We're also talking about the medical center. Maybe that's converted into a similar type of living accommodations. 4 or 6 apartments in there, and we do it through an affordable housing. We did have Grey County look at that development or that building as a development, and they've passed it off that it would be too expensive, and it would be better to start with a green space and build new and create that into subsidized housing. But anyway, please tell us what you'd like to do for the next meeting. Yeah, please tell us what you'd like to do at the next meeting. If Anne Marie is one you'd like to invite, and maybe Ron to give some short overview of what he's going to be working on.
I think
and
Joan.
The other thing is
Muriel, you had your hand up before. Anybody else wants to speak before Muriel or Jerry? Muriel, you did it.
I would like to chime in.
Jennifer, yep.
I would like to chime in. Yeah. So I keep changing what I want to say because we keep evolving in our discussions, but just to chime in with a little bit of perspective from where I'm coming from in coming to this committee. As a teacher, the biggest concern I saw for 30 years was affordable rentals for families. Not just affordable, but safe, in reasonable condition. I know from my husband, who is in an industry that provides heating, they have an affordable house because it's a slumlord condition and they can't afford to pay for the heat for the winter. From a social justice perspective, which all teachers carry, just from the nature of the game, there's that my perspective is housing is a human right. So I agree with all of our community reps that focus. It can't just be, we can't get into the minutia of just developers. I mean, developers are developers, and they're in it for their own best interests. And so we have to either subsidize or incentivize to provide developers with a reason to do all these things that we need them to do with smaller or less highly finished houses or things like that. Like branching out even out into the, I'm a very divergent person, so I know I'm going to be touching on things that maybe other people wouldn't consider. But as a social justice perspective, there's also the environmental concerns. And I know that goes back to official policy to do with land usage, and whether that needs to be looked at as we're developing our new policies. But, you know, the tiny house and the non-Dundalk perspective of the other areas that are more rural-based and ag-based land, but maybe they're the rural lands versus the higher-end ag lands in Southgate. Yeah, we do need to consider tiny house. We do need to consider trailer park or housing development policies. And I think policy is the way to go sooner than later if we want to have, you know, something as Clint said, as low-hanging fruit to be able to like say, yes, we can do this immediately. And then if we're looking at bigger picture, longer range things, then we can build into the policies things that might incentivize developers to, or require them to build the smaller houses or the cheaper houses as part of what they're doing for their own game. But we don't need to reinvent the wheel because like so maybe not in Grey County there's municipalities, but certainly out in Ontario there's municipalities that are doing a lot of things right that we can look at and take best practices from and consider. So yeah, thanks.
Good points, Jennifer. Good points. Anyone else? Any more comments? Michael, are you there? I don't see you. Any other comments from you, Michael?
Yeah, I think we need
Jerry?
to.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, I think we need to break it down and try to come up with a partnership within, you know, Grey County and maybe some of these developers and local businesses and say, hey, you know, we want to start a project for, you know, lower rent housing for people and see what's out there and see what kind of work we can get. I mean, I know we can waiver some of the fees of some of this stuff, but like I don't know what it costs for a subdivision. Like, you know, what Flatto has in each lot by the time he's done by putting in the sewers and waters. Like, what's his actual cost? Like, if there's a way that we can work with any one of them on a separate little project that we can put in our back pocket as a project and see. I don't know if we want to get totally involved in something, but I think if we don't start with something, we're going to end up with nothing in 2 years. So.
Jerry, before I get to you, Dave, Michael mentioned about the DCs. That is just for hooking up all the infrastructure to the house. It's got nothing to do with the quality of the house, like brick or vinyl or anything like that. The DCs are just made and charged out for all the infrastructure. So.
Yeah. So let me just for those that
Sorry, Jerry.
That haven't heard of development charges or don't know, it's too bad. There should have been a definition in the terms of reference. But what development charges are for is it's nothing to do with, and I shouldn't say that, but it's not to do with putting the pipes in the ground for servicing the property. Development charges are for at the end of the pipe or at the start of the pipe. So for building the water well, building the water tower, building the wastewater plant, putting a fire truck in the fire hall, you know, a snow plow in the garage, all those kind of services that the existing property owners in Southgate paid for. And what a development charge is, it's basically that if you buy the home, you're paying, or build a home, you're paying development charges, and those development charges is kind of your buy-in to let's call it the poker game of all that servicing for the water well, for the wastewater plant, for the fire truck. It's the infrastructure that's already in place, the arena, the McIntyre building, the baseball diamond, all that recreation type facilities. So we charge a fee, and that's what it is it allows for growth to pay for making the next fire truck bigger. So when we decide to buy a fire truck, if we make it 20 or 25% larger in capacity of the water it hauls, or pressure that can blow out the pipe or the fire hose. Those kind of costs are development or new growth pays for that new infrastructure. So we put those into reserves, and when we need to buy or expand infrastructure, add to the arena or something, we then dip into those development charges to pay for those kind of things. If we didn't do that, new homeowners would come in and they would get to have all that infrastructure free. And the next time when we go to buy that bigger fire truck, the existing owners are helping to pay for it. So that's a kind of a tenet of growth should pay for growth.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
hope I explained that well enough.
Well, yeah, basically. Jerry, go ahead.
As this committee starts, we're in that very, very unique situation where anything is possible for the next few minutes, at least, or the next few hours, or the next week or so. I'm wondering if through the municipality, if there's a way to share ideas. I have absolutely no issue with borrowing or stealing ideas from other places, things that have worked. And I'm just wondering if there's some way that, so that this doesn't become a meeting once a month, that we could sort of have some kind of a depository where the people, if they read something, they can send an article, or they can just send a comment, and that it's available to everyone to take a look at. It may work in our area, it may not, but at least we capture those ideas as people are thinking and running across them. Is there, we tried to do with our small committee, we tried to use, what was it, Muriel? We were going to use something to share information, but we're wondering through the township if there isn't something a little more sophisticated.
Yeah.
Clinton?
So Jerry, are you talking about committee ideas, or are you talking about maybe should we survey the public or have a public meeting get ideas of what people think?
Oh, that's a good idea, and it's important to survey the public, but I was thinking more in terms of, we know that Saugeen Shores has hired a person to look at housing. It would be, if I come across something that I see that might work somewhere, or it's a new idea, or I had never heard it before, as any of us could, if we could just throw it onto a site somewhere that everybody could take a look at, and somebody might have close experience with the idea and say, well, there are these 3 or 4 things that would suggest that it might not work here, or if it's absolutely new, why not to share it and then bring those ideas, or comment between meetings, and maybe that'll help us define a presenter too for each meeting.
So,
Can I bring Holly and Lindsay into this conversation?
Yeah.
Could we create a page, Lindsay and Holly, on our website that people could, I'd hate to use the word Facebook, but kind of make comments and log them in there. Plus, I would challenge members to do some research on those kind of things, and don't be afraid to come and present to the committee, or Jerry, give me a call and or Clint a call, and we'll have that discussion and try and put something together.
yeah.
Lindsay?
Sorry, I think that what Jerry's meaning is kind of like a Dropbox or like a Google Drive to
Yes.
share
Yeah.
documents. We can
Yeah.
certainly set something like that up. As far as the website, we can't open it for comment on pages. I mean, we can set up a page that's specifically about this committee, sharing with the public what the committee's doing, which is fine. But I think Jerry wants more of kind of a info sharing between members.
Yeah.
Maybe
That's
I'm
what
wrong.
you meant. Yeah, thank you, Lindsay. That's what you meant, Jerry, like just a catch-all basin. Like I read the Globe and Mail, you might read the Toronto Star, you might find articles that look totally different, but between the 2 articles, they might actually have a good idea for Southgate. You're basically looking at a catch-all info that we can add before the next meeting that we can look at, right? So if we can do something like that, Lindsay, that would be good, or just even a email group chat, something
Well,
like that.
I think
Well-
one of the things we got to be careful of is, though, with it, is that it's just information going out, because this being a committee of council, if we start making comment and discussing it, that's like a closed meeting, and that's leading us down where we can't go. So we can
Good point.
share the information, but we can't, without being in a meeting, we can't do it.
Yeah, it would
Yep.
just have to be something to share documents that we could then put on the agenda and make them open. Because like Mayor Woodbury said, you can't start an email group and have a quorum of the committee discussing back and forth, because then it's a meeting, considered a meeting.
But so I'm going to throw something into this discussion. We could create a housing at southgate.ca, and that would be, we'd promote it on our website through a housing page, that this would be for comments and ideas or suggestions for how to improve housing affordability in Southgate. And what we could do is then, let's say Jerry sends Holly through that housing.ca southgate.ca email address, she could then post it on the website for everybody to see on our housing page. And that would then be something for to watch, and we could then take those ideas, bring them to the committee, develop them further, and create some outcomes. But I think that's a great idea what Jerry is suggested. And can we leave that one with staff to see how we could make it work and create something for that very idea for next meeting, and we'll come up with
You okay with that,
the
Muriel,
clerk.
Jerry, everyone? Yep.
Oh, yeah, that would be wonderful.
The clerk will
Clinton?
have some great ideas.
Yeah. You had your hand up a while ago, Clinton. Anything to say, or? No, you're done now?
It was
No
covered.
comment?
It was covered.
Anyway. So we're getting on. It's almost 9 o'clock. So correct me if I'm wrong. We're looking at rental and smaller homes to be looked at. And then for the next meeting, we'll have a couple of people, mainly this Anne Marie Shaw, and maybe the two people involved with the smaller buildings that are going up in Dundalk, the companies that are going to start up. Would they be okay for 3 presentations? I know that sounds like a lot for a first meeting, but we do have 2-hour allotments. It would be good to get more information as quick as we can, because we only do have a year and a half. So is everybody okay with that? Dave, what do you think?
I think 2 presentations per meeting is adequate
More than enough?
for 2
Okay.
hours. Yeah, that's enough, and that's the policy we have with council, is no more than 2 presentations or delegations.
True,
But
true.
I think Anne Marie would be a great one, and we can have the individual that one of those individuals, maybe Casaterra, and he's also doing the modular, and he's doing the home development, rural home development thing. So anyway, leave that with us, and we'll work with through Lindsay and the chair to get the next agenda created.
Okay.
And
So,
just to confirm, let's set our next meeting tonight, so we don't chase one another for that.
Yeah.
Is this a good night on a monthly basis? I would suggest you likely want a monthly meeting, or
yeah, for now,
less.
I
Yeah.
think we should, for
Yeah.
sure. This meeting, this night is good for me. I can make my schedule work. I don't know about the other members, but it would be, I don't have a calendar in front of me, but
So it would be the 4th Tuesday of every month, if that's how we want to go forward.
well, I'm okay with that, as long as we have a month to get ideas and look. As I said, I might find an article in the Toronto Star. I can just talk to Jerry about it on the phone. What do you think? Should we put this in? The idea of a website to, yeah, so a month Is that okay with everyone?
Yeah,
Does-
October 25th at 7 p.m. is what I see on the calendar.
Yeah. If that's what
26,
it,
sorry, 26.
26th, yeah. So the fourth Tuesday, not the last Tuesday of the month.
No, the
Correct.
4th.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Morgan, is that okay with you, Jennifer?
Yeah, that's good.
Yep, that's good.
okay. I'm assuming it's okay with Michael. So,
Okay.
well, I think we've started off on the right foot. We have terms of reference. We have all kinds of the different corporations and people that we can dig more into and get more info on. So I think it was a good start for a very important year and a half work of talking. And hopefully there'll be more than talking going on. So I will say thank you for everybody coming out to this inaugural Housing Committee meeting. And if everybody is in favor, we will call the meeting adjourned at 8:51.
Good night, everyone.
Right,
Night.
I'm
thanks,
in favor.
everyone.
Yep.
Good.
Night.
Thank you so
very
much.
much.
Yep.
Thanks.
Thank you.